Well, hello, welcome again to our reading of the Greek New Testament, and I'm reading through Hebrews and up to chapter 7, and the story comes back again now to Melchizedek, who was reintroduced in the end of the previous chapter. And the first section of this, you can see from the black here that these are bits and pieces of phrases that are taken from the Septuagint. They're from Genesis 14, roughly verses 17 onwards. It's not a continuous narrative that's been taken. The author here has just selected bits and pieces and slightly conflated the story that's there. You might like to have a read of Genesis 14 to see the proper context of this. In particular, it is the king of Sodom that comes out to meet Abraham. Melchizedek is then introduced as a secondary person that the king of Sodom is ignored here, and they've simply replaced him with Melchizedek throughout. So you should have a look at perhaps Genesis 14 to see the exact context of this. And this is quite a long chapter, so I'm going to do it in 3 shorter sections. The logic of this in the language can be a little bit difficult at times, so I'll do it fairly slowly. Houtos gar hot Melchizedek basilius salem, heros to theou to hopsistu, hot sun antesas Abraham, hupostrephonti apotes kopes ton basileon, carulagesas auton. Hoi kai dekaten apapanton emirisen Abram. Proton men hermenu ominos basilius dikaiasunes, epeta de kai basilius salem, hot estin basilius irenes. Apate amate a genealogetos meti aken hemeron, meti tsoes telos ekon af homoi omenos de to huiu to theou mene hieros as to dia ninkes. So, it's a very long sentence, for this Melchizedek, and this is from the Septuagint, the bits in black, the king of Salem, the priest of the Most High God. This is one of the epithets of Yahweh in the Old Testament. Hot sun and tesas, so he, having met with Abraham, now in the original context, as I mentioned, it's actually the king of Sodom that meets with Abraham, and then Melchizedek comes next. But anyway, he having met with Abraham. Now this will be in the dative case. There's no endings here, of course, for this word, but sun antao is the verb to meet, and it takes a dative, and then in apposition to Abraham we have a dative participle from hupostrepho. So the one having met with Abraham as he, that is Abraham, apostrophanti is returning, it's a present participle, apotes kopes, from the slaughter. This is connected with kopto, to cut, and it's used in a rather grotesque military sense of to slaughter your enemy. So the slaughter of the kings, again you need to read Genesis 14 to see the context of this. Abraham has gone out to try and get back possessions and people who had been taken by these various kings, and he defeats them, and there is a slaughter. So as he's coming back from the slaughter of the kings, and now this again is Melchizedek, having blessed him, him to whom also Abraham emiresen, this is verb merizdo, to divide, to put into portions. Meros is a part of something. And so for whom also Abraham divided or parted with 1/10, dekatan, apotone, pantone, of all the things, that is, all the things he brought back from the war, all the spoils. Now we get proton men, and then we're going to get to balance that epeta de. And this must be referring to the titles. So firstly, Melchizedek, being interpreted, understand, is King of Righteousness. Now it's an interesting point here. Why would the writer have to feel the need to translate this if it was a completely Jewish audience who didn't understand, who presumably understood what the name Melchizedek meant? Well, he or she may simply be emphasizing it, but that's just an interesting point there that the author feels interpret it. So the first name understood, being interpreted, this is a passive participle from hermeneuo. We get hermeneutics in English from that. Being interpreted is the King of Righteousness. Melchizedek, the milk root from Melech, a king, and the Sedek root from righteousness. King of Righteousness, epeta de, and the second title, if you will, also the Basileus Salem, which is the King of Peace. Salem for shalom, of course, for peace. And he is a pater, without a father, a pator, without a father, a mator, without a mother, a genealogetos, without any genealogy, so without any forebears. Meti arcane, hemeron metit soes telos ekon. So neither is there a beginning of days, so he neither has a beginning of days, and the participle is down here, so having neither a beginning of days nor of life an end. Again, we get this nice, very stylistic chiasmus here. So we've got meti plus, then we've got the accusative and genitive, and then we've got the genitive and accusative. So having neither a beginning of days nor having an end of life. Omenos, this is a participle which will mean resembling, from that homoi o'o. So resembling, perhaps almost, perhaps signifying almost, but it's literally resembling the Son of God. Mene, he remains as a hieros, priest, as to dianekes. This is an adverb. It's technically neuter plural adjective, but it's an adverb here. It's quite fairly common in classical Greek, meaning continuously and or forever, and it's been extended to this eis to dianenkes, so it's just the whole phrase here simply means continuously or forever. It's apparently quite common in Greek inscriptions of the period of the time. Theoreti de pelikos hutos, ho kai dekaten Abraham edo ken ekton akrothinion ho patriarches. And now I think this is probably an imperative from theoreo. So look at how great is this man. Pelikos. So look at how great is this man. See how great this man is. Hoi, to whom Abraham edoken dekaten gave a tenth. Ekton akrothinion. It's Abraham the patriarch, patriarches. So to whom Abraham the patriarch gave a tenth. Ekton akrothinion, the good classical word, this means the spoils of war. The akrothinion, the spoils. Kai hoi men ekton huion lewi tain hieratean labenontes entolen ecusi apodecatun ton laon kataton nomon tut esti tus adelphos auton kaiper ex ele luthotas ectes osfuos abram. Now we get a hoi men here, and this writer is very good. When you've got a hoi men, there's normally a det to go with it, and there is, but it's right down here. So in this section, I think the author is contrasting the priests, the Jewish priests, with Melchizedek. So, and hoi men, and we get goes with the labanontes present participle, those taking on the priesthood, the hieratea, from the sons of Levi, because the Jewish priests had to be from the tribe of Levi. So those taking on the priesthood from the sons of Levi, ekusin entolain, they have a law. Apodecatun is an infinitive from apodecatoo. Apodecatoo, well, decatoo is simply to collect tithes from, and the apo is just strengthening it here. So having they have a law, an entole, a commandment to tithe, to extract tithes from ton laon, from the people, kataton nom, according to the law. Tut esti tus adelphos auton, that is, and this is in apposition with the laon, that is, from their own brothers. So they are taking a tithe from their own brothers. Kaiper, now kaiper, good classical usage here, kaiper plus a participle, and in apposition to the adelphus is the ex ele luthotas from ex erchomai. So although their brothers, their brethren, literally have come out from the osfuos, this is a genitive here from osfus, it's a third declension noun. Well, it means from the loins of Abraham. We might say nowadays perhaps the DNA of Abraham. Now, of course, these the idea being that all descendants of the Jews come from Abraham, and hence they have come in some sense from his loins through endless generations. It's not really a concept of DNA, but that's the sense of it here. We just translate the loins of Abraham. Hoder me, now this is the hoder balancing the hoi men. So these are the priests. They tithe the people who are their own brothers, even though they've come out from the loins of Abraham. But he, that is Melchizedek, may genia logumenos, not literally being, well, perhaps being descended from, not being descended from. It's a passive here. So he not being descended from them because he has no forebears. Dedekatoken. Now this is from dekatoo. This is the perfect. He has imposed a tithe upon Abraham. So in the same way that the priests do it to the people, he imposed a tithe upon Abraham, even the one having, there's a main verb, so it's kaitone konta tas ep angelias eulogeken. So it's and he has blessed the one having the promises. I think the point here is that the point about all this is the fact that they have an entole by kataton nomon, by the law. So the priests have to tithe the people because of a commandment of the law, whereas Melchizedek applies a tithe to Abraham, and Abraham gives him a tenth, not because of any law, but because of the respect that he has for him, because he is such a, as it said before, Pelikos, so he is so great a man. That argument continues in verse 7 here. Choris de pases antilogias to elaton hupato kretonos eulogetai. We've had antilogia before, it meaning to dispute or to argue against, and choris takes a genitive. So, but without probably any, it's literally each dispute. So without any dispute, so perhaps beyond dispute, the elaton, the lesser, eulogetai, is blessed by the greater. This is elaton is that comparative, and you often see it as elasson in the double tor is often written as a double sigma in both in New Testament Greek and also in Ionic Greek, and these are really Attic forms here. So and similarly with kratonos for krason or kraton. So without any dispute, the lesser is blessed passive by the greater. Kai hodi men Descartes apothnescontes anthropoi lambanusi eke dermaturuminos hotitse. This is quite a condensed verse and slightly tricky. We've got hodi men, so when you've got a men, look out for the de. You've got eke de here, so keep that in mind. The apothnescontes goes with the anthropoi, but it's not men dying in the sense that they're about to keel over, but men who are in the process of dying, men that will eventually die. So it's something like, and in here, on the one hand, men who will die, or men that die, lambanusi receive decatas, tithes. Now this must be referring to the priests back that we had before. So the priests impose the tithe. Now they're men who will eventually die. They receive the tithes. Eke de, but in this situation, literally but here, and then it's very condensed here, we have to understand the one who is literally being witnessed, so of whom there is witness that he lives, understand receives the tithes. So again, it's comparing the priests with Melchizedek. So on the one hand, you've got men who are going to die, they receive the tithes, but in this situation, the one who receives the tithes, understood, is the one for whom it is witnessed. It's a passive, present passive here. He being witnessed, hotit say, that he lives. That is, he doesn't die. So that's quite a tricky couple of verses there to get the sense of it and to understand the Greek. Kai hos epos apain, di abram hailewi hot decatas lambanein, dedekatotai, and I'll just finish it off. Etiga ente osfui tu patros ein, hoti sun e te senator Melchizedek. Kai hos epos apain. This is it's a classical expression really. It means, to put it in another way, to put it literally to speak. So as to speak a word. So in the sense of one might say, so one might even say, or perhaps almost to put it plainly. Now the subject here is Levi, and that goes with the hot lambano decatos. So it's Levi, the one taking the tithe. who collects the tithe, paid the tithe through Abraham. Difficult expression here, so let me just translate that and then try and look at the meaning of it. So for Levi, the one who collects the tithe has, now this is a passive here, it's a perfect passive, has paid the tithe de Abram through Abraham, eti gar for oh yes, I see. For he was, that is, Levi was, literally in the loins of his father, that is descended from Abraham, when Melchizedek met with him. So the sense is that Levi himself has paid the tithes to Melchizedek because Levi was one of the descendants of Abraham. So just to translate that again, so it's something like, so that one might even say that Levi, the one having taken the tithes, was tithed through Abraham, for he was still in the loins of his father when Melchizedek met with him, that is, with Abraham. So I'll finish that at that point, and we'll continue this in another recording.